For this assignment, I decided to do my presentation on the Walmart inventory shrinkage case. This case focuses on a Walmart store in Atomic City, Idaho that is having inventory shrinkage problems and its new store manager, Shane O'Hara. Inventory shrinkage is a loss of inventory due to shoplifting, organized crime, employee theft, and other related losses. Shane was transferred to Atomic City store in 2013 by Jeffrey Cook, the Walmart regional manager for that area. Shane's job was to reduce the rate of shrinkage experienced at the store. The shrinkage was so bad at the Atomic City store that there was talk of shutting the store down altogether. So Shane had a lot of pressure to save the jobs of 40 employees and earn bonuses for both Jeffrey Cook and himself. Shane tightened up controls at the store and hired an asset protection manager. As a result, the rate of shrinkage significantly reduced, but wasn't good enough for Jeffrey Cook. Toward the end of August 2013, the store performed its annual inventory audit and it showed a massive reduction in the store's shrinkage rate. The reduction was so large that Shane was convinced that the numbers were doctored in some way. In the remaining months of 2013, some high-level employees left the company. Some retired and others fired. Shane was concerned that he was next. Shane contacted Jeffrey Cook, who told him that Cook passed off the dramatic change in the shrinkage rate as improper accounting by the Atomic City store, and Shane was now under investigation and suspended with pay. Shane was in shock because he knew he did nothing wrong, so he reached out to another store manager in the area. This other store manager told Shane that a similar thing had happened to her. She had discovered that a dramatic decrease in the shrinkage rate at her store was because missing inventory items were not counted as missing. So even if the item had been stolen, the item was still counted as part of inventory. Shane wanted to protect his good name, but he didn't know what to do next. On this slide, I will examine how the provisions of Sarbanes-Oxley might have helped to detect the fraud. I believe that sections 301 and 302 of Sarbanes-Oxley could have helped to detect the fraud. Section 301 requires independent audit committees to oversee the receipt, retention, and treatment of confidential and anonymous submissions by employees of the company. With this section properly established, any one of the employees counting the inventory, Shane, or even the second store manager could successfully report the fraud that was happening. Section 302 requires that the CEOs and CFOs certify that they have reviewed annual and quarterly reports. Also, they must certify that it is their responsibility to establish and maintain proper internal controls over the financial reporting of the company. With this section properly established, the executive that reviewed the report from the Atomic City store would see what Shane saw, and the change in shrinkage rate was clearly fraudulent. Next, we look at what anti-fraud controls might have helped to detect the fraud. I believe that the fraud was initially detected by Shane, but he didn't properly respond to his findings. An overall review of the inventory audit and trend analysis of ratios, such as the shrinkage rate, would have detected situations where fraud is happening. If the controls were properly functioning, Shane or another manager would have reviewed the shrinkage rate, noticed the deficiency, and investigated to find out why the rate had changed. If Shane had done this, he potentially could have stopped the suspension and investigation. Next, I'll step into Shane's shoes and see what he should do next. I believe that the first thing Shane should do is find evidence that corroborates the claims made by the other store manager and that he contacted. This way, he can be sure that his claims are correct. I would then contact Jeffrey Cook, the regional manager, and would tell him about the fraud that was committed. I believe it is Shane's responsibility to the investors of the company of Walmart to bring this information to light. This is simply an ethical issue of misleading investors, much like what happened at Enron. If I were in a situation like this, I would definitely consider blowing the whistle since I am suspended with pay. Like Shane, it is very important to me to protect my good name and keep my integrity. Personally, if I came across any type of fraud, no matter the situation, I would blow the whistle. I would follow a similar process as described earlier with Shane. I would gather evidence about the fraud and then proceed up the chain of command until I find someone who will listen to me. Thank you.